The year's 2025, and we're told we need perfect edge-to-edge sharpness, marketing for cults of lifeless repeaters. But the creation of film was always flawed. They chased true-to-life colors, but it was never precise. They chased finer grain, but it was never grainless. It was an organic material made by humanity, as flawed as humanity themselves. The art form of capturing life. And film forced me to walk to my own beat, because it's never been about perfection. There's always been something human to it, and this 1972 lens is my conductor. This is the trick to the film look. Sure, presets can help, but using clinical lenses while trying to get the film look is like trying to paint with a knife. Huge shout out to Tamarkin Camera out in Chicago. I'm pretty sure I just butchered that name. They've never seen my channel before I was in contact with them, and they actually loaned me this lens for me to figure out if I want to trade in my Leica Summicron King of Bokeh version 4 35mm, which is what we're filming on right now. They actually have a huge selection of used Leica stuff and new Leica stuff. I'll put a link in the description if you guys want to check out their store if you're in the Chicago area and see, you know, what stock they have of things. But this isn't sponsored by them or anything, but I'm just incredibly grateful that they let me use this. At the end of the video, you guys will find out if I keep my King of Bokeh Leica lens or this new Pre ASPH version 2 Summilux Leica lens. God, I love this lens. That will kind of open up what we're going to be talking about, and that all comes down to the film look. And I think a lot of people fall into this a whole nother trap of thinking, oh, if I just get this film preset and add film grain, it's gonna look like film. But they're missing the core identity and purpose and workflow behind film that makes film look like film. Obviously, all the pics that you're seeing in this video, all was shot on the Leica M11 with this lens right here. And I'm using my new Rambler film emulation LUTs that are only for Capture One. Sadly, I can't create those type of looks in Lightroom. Capture One just has a way more powerful engine behind it for photo editors. So yeah, I'll put a link down in the description if you guys want to check those out. As I just said, again, it's not just about presets. It's more importantly how you shoot the image, and if you shoot it like film, if that makes sense. Let's talk about it. So like I said, this is the Leica Summilux f1.4 35mm. This is the second version they ever made. I think they made this from like 1966 up until like the 1990s. That's how iconic it was. This specific model was made in 1972. So we have all the classic old coatings that could easily get scratched up. Don't worry, I have a solution for that. You guys will see. But with that comes a lot of charm. Before we start going over the lens and the character and the downsides and upsides, this is kind of important for me to talk about. And that's the way that Leica is able to design their lenses. The M mount system is like the original mirrorless camera out there. Obviously, this is a digital rangefinder, and this design's almost exactly the same that it was like in the freaking 1960s, which is wild. But you can see there's no mirror in here. Let me grab my Leica MP actually real quick so you guys can see the proof in the pudding. So this is my Leica MP. This is a film camera. This has a glossy black paint on it. It's made out of brass. It's very dense. And you can see it looks almost exactly the same that the M11 looked like inside, except, you know, the shutter on here shows the film plane, where on the M11, it's the same distance. And so all the lenses that were made for Leica's original M system, you can use digitally on their M11s, M10s, whatever digital Leicas that you have. Now, the reason I'm talking about this is because M mount lenses, you can see how close that rear element, that back piece of glass, how close that sits to your sensor or your film, whatever you're doing. When you do that, you get a lot more image quality out of your glass because there's less space. Pair that up with a vintage lens like this. You get all these old coatings, you get all this warpy bokeh that has so much character to it. It feels alive almost. And on top of that, you still get incredible sharpness out of it on a modern level. The lens I'm filming on right now, the Leica Summicron 35mm version 4 King of Bokeh. This lens is highly sought after, and I absolutely love this lens. And it does have some character, as you guys can see in the bokeh here. We're wide open at f2. But if I close down just to like f2.8, you can see it flattens out and it sharpens up and the contrast gets even better. So on a lot of these older Leica lenses, when you open them all the way up, all of a sudden you get way more juice. So when I started to find out about this lens, at f2, it has almost the same exact look as this Summicron King of Bokeh version 4. So once I heard that, I was like, wait, so I can get the same lens with the same bokeh, but then if I open up to f1.4, I get even more, like a totally different lens out of it, even more character out of it, while still holding a fair amount of the sharpness. So what is the film look? Obviously, a lot of us who get into film, we have to go and hunt down old film cameras and old lenses that will work on them. We lust over timeless images that were shot decades ago on film cameras and film. And with that, you know, you have a mix of different cameras. You have film SLRs and you have rangefinders, you have medium format, all of that. All that gave you different paintbrushes to work with, paintbrushes being the lenses. So when you look at film work, you're not just looking at an image that's being captured on a physical, you know, piece of film. You're looking at those old paintbrushes. So a lot of people who are trying to get the film look through their mirrorless cameras and, you know, their crazy high performing autofocus lenses, they go and put on a film preset and maybe they'll try to put a diffusion filter on and stack on film grain and yada, yada, yada. You can get kind of close to it, but even when I'm trying to do that in Capture One or Lightroom, I make sure to turn my sharpness off. You're never gonna get that true film look unless you shoot vintage glass. And again, circling back to Leica glass and the M11 or any Leica camera, they're all tuned to be able to work best with these older lenses. I heard and I've been told that the sensor glass in the M11 is thinner than what's traditionally in a standard mirrorless camera. So with that, when you put vintage glass on this, you're gonna get more of that true sharpness that you would get on the film as well. Anyway, so like I was saying, at f2, this lens looks extremely close to the Summicron King of Bokeh that I'm filming on right now. But then when you open up to f1.4, you start seeing that Leica glow. I've never really heard about the Leica glow until I got this lens. Some people have mixed feelings. Some people don't like the glow because it could be distracting. Other people love the glow. I'm on the latter end. I'm obsessed with the glow that it creates because once I go into post, I put on my Rambler film emulation and Capture One, some film grain. So not only does it have that Leica glow, there's still sharpness. So I think a lot of people might look at the glow and think that it's soft, but it's not soft. It still has that center sharpness, but there's just a little bit of a glow around it. And then as you get into the edges, you'll see the focus has some funkiness to it. I have a very strong suspicion. I actually talked about this in my Typoc Eureka video about like the Leica look. I think a lot of it comes down to how small and compact these lenses are. The light that's being collected through here, it's being bounced around this tiny little diameter of a lens. And then when it gets kicked back onto your full frame sensor, you know, you're getting all of the edges of those elements where, you know, fast forward to, you know, modern lenses. Let me grab the Lumix 50mm f1.4. This thing, you guys can see how freaking huge this is. This has the same aperture, but the fact that it's such a large diameter of a lens, it's gonna transmit that light beyond the full frame sensor. So, you know, if there was like an L mount medium format camera, this lens might cover the full medium format sensor. That's basically how they cheat better image quality is they kind of just blow up the lenses. And so the coverage that it's getting is bigger than whatever the sensors it's made for. Now on the Summicron King of Bokeh, it's a very well-controlled contrasty lens, even at f2. Where did I put my flashlight at? Oh, it's in my pocket. For instance, let me just get my flashlight out and you can see how well controlled that flare is. It still has some vintage character to it, but for this being, I think this lens was made in like the late 80s or 90s. It's pretty well controlled. Again, this is what's so special to Leica. Now, let me throw on this lens, the Summilux version 2 pre-aspherical. And we'll start it at f2 and then we'll open up to f1.4 so you guys can see what I'm talking about here. Now you guys can see we're on the Leica Summilux. Now I have the King of Bokeh version 4 on my M11 here. Again, we're at f2 right now. So let me flare this one out. You can see flare is definitely more intense on this lens. Should be expected because this lens is a good like maybe 2 decades older than the one, the Summicron version 4 right here. Bokeh probably doesn't look that different. The overall contrast doesn't look that different, but let's go from f2 to f1.4 and you can see the magic behind this lens. Now we're at f1.4. You can see around the frame of my glasses, the edge of my hat, anything with like a contrast point has this glow to it. It's absolutely beautiful. It creates like a thickness to the image, but we still have our sharpness. You can even see the lamp behind me has a subtle glow. Now let's do the flashlight, and you guys can see that flare gets so intense. You can see all the dirt in the lens and everything. I should probably get this lens CL'd. It's kind of crazy because this flare actually reminds me of the DZO-R lusters. I actually did a review of them on my channel. I'll put a link in the description, but the flare on there looks very close to this. You know, DZO only made 100 sets of those. They're really special edition, very unique, gorgeous lenses. They never made a square hood for it either, but I have a solution for that. My homie over at Square Hood designed one. So let's see if it helps with the flare issues at all. So you guys are getting to see if the flare was fixed before I even did. It's still being shipped at this point. I'm crossing my fingers that it does help control the flare a little bit, because already just from the past week or two that I've been using this lens, there's been multiple shots where the flare kind of ruined the shot. Sometimes that flare is really beautiful, but sometimes it can just ruin and cause a really just like a huge distraction in your photograph. So now you guys can imagine it's hard to get this look with the diffusion filter, because diffusion filters don't have a lot of control. You're putting a piece of glass in front of your lens, and that glass is not on the level of the glass quality that's in this Leica lens and a lot of these modern day lenses. And so when you do that, all you're doing is you're diffusing and flaring out that front element. You're destroying the light that's going into your lens. And the difference with the diffusion with this lens is we're getting this diffusion through lens design. And so there's a control around it. Literally only the edges is what's getting that like a glow. But overall, there's like a broad softening of the contrast. But again, everything feels extremely controlled. This lens is truly, for me, it's magical, because now, you know, I can get my 60 or 62 megapixels, whatever sensors in this. I can get all that crazy image quality, so I could do prints and send it to clients if I want to. But then I could pair it up with a lens like this and get the true sharpness out of it because of everything we talked about with how Leica designs these sensors and these cameras to be paired together with the glass. But I can get that 1972, when this lens was made, I could get that 1972 film look out of it. This is what's so magical. You can't do this with anything else. Now, M mount is truly a magical mount, because, you know, if you do filmmaking, you're going to be aware of the PL mount. That mount, you're able to adapt it to pretty much any camera in existence. And I want to deem this and claim this right now, but the M mount is the PL mount of photography, because you can literally adapt this lens and this lens that we're shooting on, all the Leica M mount lenses, pretty much to any camera. You're not going to get all that beautiful sharpness and all of that punchy natural contrast that the lens has unless you put it on a M mount like a body, because again, they're designed to work best with these vintage lenses. The close focus on the lens that this whole video is about is not that great. Most of these vintage M mount lenses don't have great close focus. I do think this lens could be hacked, and I think you can increase the minimum focus on it. And, you know, I'm contemplating doing that. I'm going to send it in. I don't want to do it myself because I'll just ruin it. Now, these are pricey lenses. You know, they're really vintage, iconic lenses, and, you know, they're going to range anywhere from like $2,000 to $4,000. And then, you know, there's old Leica lenses that are super rare, going for over $100,000. It's insane. Don't think that you just have to go out and buy a super expensive Leica lens. You could go out and get an old Canon FD lens or an old Nikon lens. The old Nikon lenses are actually incredibly sharp and have great contrast. The Canon FD lenses have some beautiful flares to them. I own a few of all of those, but out of all of those, these Leica lenses, specifically the Summilux, has the best combination of just like, you know, almost it edges modern day sharpness with just enough of a glow and slight softening of the contrast and a really character packed bokeh. And that's kind of what it all comes down to for me personally is, you know, creating painterly type bokeh. That's why you guys know I love anamorphics so much, because for me, it makes my brain look at the whole image and not just one little part of the image. And so when my brain's tricked to look at the whole image, I feel like I can live in it a little bit more. I feel like I can see more of the story. And then as my eye kind of tunes in with it, I can start going to the details then. It's just a better experience for me. And again, I feel like more character-packed bokeh kind of helps my brain do that. And I know if it helps my brain, it's probably having that effect on other people, especially normies, not all the tech heads and all of us who just want to bicker and banter over gear and stuff. Now, if you want to do something like this with a modern day lens, you know, I've been using this Polar Pro gold mist filter. I actually use this on the S1R2 with the Rokinon. Let me grab it real quick. This has been kind of my do-it-all lens, no matter if I'm doing a fashion shoot, documentary shoot, whatever it is. This is the Rokinon 35 to 150, f2 to 2.8. I actually had this gold mist filter glued to this lens for all the other shots that you guys are now seeing that were shot with that. The reason I like the Polar Pro gold mist is it's very, very, very subtle. I had a Tiffin gold mist before, and it sometimes was a little bit too heavy. So yeah, for when it comes to photography, I still love using diffusion filters. When it comes to filmmaking, I don't really like using diffusion filters. I rather find, you know, character-rich lenses instead, because it holds quality a little bit better. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Part of me just wanted to share this lens because I was so excited to finally own it. I am keeping it, and I am gonna give my King of Bokeh in trade to Mark and Camera. They do have to check over and make sure everything's fine with it. And so if you want to own my old King of Bokeh that I was rocking for the past year with my original Leica M11, go hit them up and snag it up from them. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Let me know if all the shots that you guys saw from the M11 and the Summilux lens that we're filming on, if you think it helped create more of that film look. And for everybody out there that wants to get the film look, the last piece of advice is to freaking shoot film. And I don't mean that in like a joking, condescending way. I mean that as in order for you to truly learn how to get the film look, you need to shoot film. You need to train your brain. You need to brainwash yourself with the filmic tones and contrast. That's the most important thing, is contrast, really. And then the lens, and then the film presets and the grain and everything. So I encourage you guys to go out there and shoot some film. Doing that also really helped me with my skin tones. So now when I go and edit, I naturally can just get good skin tones because I'm used to, you know, getting it on film. But yeah, that's it. Shout out to all my Leica homies in the Leica community that have really been inspiring me and reminding me to go out there and shoot. Also constantly reminding me that gear is purely just tools and the lenses are a paintbrush, and it's okay to like what you like. If you like something that marketing's telling you you're not supposed to like it anyways. If you're liking something that people say you shouldn't like it anyways. Do what you want, use what you like, because if you do that, you're gonna be encouraged to go out there and make better shots and go out there and shoot more. So that's it. I'm done. Peace. Now, I know some people hate the word character. They rather say defects. For me, I got started in a time where mirrorless cameras did not exist. I fumbled around with a lot of DSLRs and a lot of film cameras. Back in those days, we never looked at what cameras couldn't do. We always looked at cameras for what they could do. So, you know, if we had a creative idea or a job or anything like that, we would look at gear as, what tool do I need to do that job? It wasn't, let me get the best camera and let me nitpick at what it can't do. So there's a huge difference between there. And that coincides with the fact that, you know, since mirrorless cameras have become such a prevalent thing in photography, you know, they're amazing. I'm filming on the Lumix S1R2 right now. I absolutely love this lens for professional photography when I have to make sure I'm getting the shot and I don't want to miss it. Autofocus, yada, 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 all of it. I absolutely love that camera. But as technology started to consume photography more, you start to get more tech heads into the space. People looking to get into photography because they enjoyed the cameras and the technology, and maybe they inspired to be a photographer someday. That's totally fine, but I feel like a lot of those guys are the guys that hate the word character and they don't get it. They think everything needs to be perfect, everything needs to be precise, and that's what photography is about. Photography's never fucking been about that. Photography is an art form. With an art form, everything is subjective. So for me, my opinion is, you know, I like clinical clean glass for pro work because I don't want to deal with any issues coming up. I don't want to deal with any flares, any defects, any like distracting bokeh. I just want to be able to get the job done for the client so they can see their clothes or their face or whatever it is. There's a time and place for it. But majority of the stuff that I shoot, I get hired for the look that I create. I get hired for the storytelling that I can do. I get hired for my taste in photography and my ability to execute that. And part of my taste in photography is getting a mix of a vintage look and a timeless look. I know those words don't exactly coincide with each other, but for me in this modern day, you know, when I pick up a mirrorless camera like the S1R2 or the S1 II or Sony camera, Nikon camera, the GFX 102, whatever it is, it feels like technology in my hand and it kills the fun behind it. But anyways, I'm getting on a tangent. Back to the film look.